Welcome back to our latest episode of Japan's Top Business Interviews. I'm your host, Dr. Greg Story, President Dale Carnegie Tokyo Training Japan. My special guest today is Andrijana Cvetkovikj, who is the President CEO of BrioNexus here in Japan. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you, Greg.
How is it that you are here in Japan running your own company and doing many, I know you're doing many things. This is just one of them.
Exactly.
But give us a little bit of the background on how you got to Japan and what you've been doing, and then through that, we'll work our way into some leadership experiences you've had, because I know you've done many things here and you're going to have many different perspectives. So I can't wait to get to that. But give us some of the background.
Well, thank you, Greg, first for inviting me to be part of this show. I saw you have amazing list of people who are being part of this interview series, and I'm feeling very honored to be part of this today. And I have to say, I'm also a personal fan of Dale Carnegie.
Oh, thank you very much. We're very pleased to hear that.
In different periods of my career, I've been listening to his audiobooks or reading his books, and I think I've learned a great deal from it, and I'm happy that his philosophy is being carried on in Japan through your work here.
Well, we're 60 years now in Japan, so people don't realize we've been around such a long time. So it's quite a long history, yeah. And this is the Whitlow room, an office in here. Next door, they're doing training at the moment, is the Mochizuki room. And Mr. Mochizuki and Mr. Whitlow pioneered Dale Carnegie in Japan in 1963. So we named the rooms in honor of them to recognize their contribution, so the names stay alive. So
fantastic.
Yeah, it's good. So please go ahead.
Well, you asked me about my journey in Japan, which is, I guess, very interesting and in many ways unusual, because you introduced me as the CEO President of BrioNexus. That's my company. But I was also ambassador in Japan, the first ambassador of Republic of Macedonia.
First ambassador for the Republic of Macedonia. Yes. Wow. And for people who don't know, Macedonia is north of Greece and I guess south of, I don't know, well, it used to be Yugoslavia. I don't know.
Serbia.
And
now it's Kosovo also.
Kosovo or something like that.
And the other countries surrounding Macedonia, it's Albania and Bulgaria.
Right.
So it's in the middle of the Balkans. It's one of the, I would say, the most beautiful countries
in
that region, because I am probably not impartial, but so I was the first ambassador. I was given that honor to be the first ambassador, but before that...
So here's a question. Why did they select you to be the ambassador? You must have had some background, something going on with your education, your experience. They said, look, we need someone who knows Japan, hopefully, someone who speaks Japanese, hopefully, and here's you. So how do we get to be selected?
Yes, I think there is a lot of, I would say, luck in play as well in these things, how they happen in constellation of your life when you're giving an opportunity that you're not on that path, but all of a sudden you become part of a different path. But in terms of how I became ambassador, I came in Japan actually when I was 23. I did my master's here in cinema. Actually, sorry, I already had my master's from Bulgaria. I did my Ph.D. in cinema here from Nihon University. And I did it all in Japanese. And I learned Japanese since I came here.
Okay.
I didn't know any Japanese.
Were you Mambosho?
I was a Mombuka Gakusho.
At that time, yeah. So
was
I.
Oh, really?
I did my. I didn't do my PhD. I did my master's under the Mambosho. Yeah.
And after I did my PhD, I already had a Japanese language under my belt, and I was very well integrated in the Japanese society. I was working in an AI company, of all things.
Which would have been, I guess, at that time, very exotic.
2009.
And all sort of R&D labs and,
exactly.
Scientists, and not something the ordinary person would have anything to do with.
Exactly. But, my fascination with new technologies and sort of ability to predict what the trend will be, it's not only since that time. I did my master's in Bulgaria on digital cinema. This is 2003, 2004. I could hardly find a professor who will sign my, you need to have a mentor who will sign that you can pass the master dissertation. But I was convinced that digital technology will take off and it will become a standard. Everybody else in the university was saying that's not going to happen.
They thought it was just going to remain as film.
That's just TV standard. Digital technology it can be used for television, but never for cinema. And I said, no, it will. The master dissertation title was the 10 years of digital cinema history and the 100 years forward.
Right.
And that was the reason actually I came in Japan. So going fast forward, me working in an AI company after the PhD was for me another curiosity to find out what kind of new technologies are out there. And again, my interest was always related to how it might change cinema and arts and culture. For me, cinema is my first love, and no matter what I do, and even what I do now, I see extension of that, because in a way, you are a storyteller.
Yep.
You need to go wherever you go, even if you want to be a great leader, you want to inspire others, you need to tell your story, and you need to have a narrative, not only for public relation purposes, you need to have your narrative for your own life. So in that sense, you have to understand your goals, your objectives, your values. And in many ways, we're all on our hero's journey, as James Campbell.
So you're in the AI company. I guess you were operating as someone who was leading a team, or were you one of the team? What was your position there?
Yes, I was leading a team, and my job was we were actually developing robots that can speak 3 languages simultaneously, Chinese, Japanese, and English, without switch of a button. Right now, everything you see usually it's 2 languages. Even if you go in Google Translate from English to Japanese. So this robot or this AI was able to speak 3 languages simultaneously. And my team or my job was to create the emotional part of the robot. So intelligent robot was already a thing, but create emotional robot, a robot that will be able to not mimic a human being, but being able to interact with human beings on a more emotional level. And my previous history in cinema, of course, and PhD, and part of my PhD was related to psychology. That's always been my big interest. I'm a big Jungian. Carl Gustav Jung. I have been studying a lot about archetypes and the collective subconscious mind and dreams. Also mass psychology.
I must ask you about some of my dreams later, but that's a different podcast. But here's the point. You've come from Europe, you've come to Japan, you've come as a Mombukasho scholar, and you've gotten your PhD, you've already got a master's degree from Bulgaria. And you are now in a company, you're in a Japanese company, and you are leading a team. So this is your first, I'm guessing, probably your first experience to lead a team in Japan as the boss. I don't know how many people are in your team.
But actually no, because when I was in the PhD also, I was as a film course, you need to make movies.
What were you doing, sorry?
You need to make films.
Oh, okay.
In order to get the PhD, that's the course.
Okay, so there's a practical component of it as well. Okay.
Exactly. So I made a couple of movies also in Japan. They were short films, but making a movie, it's
it's a team.
It's a teamwork,
you need sound,
and it's very
vision.
Difficult. Sound, vision, you don't have much budget, low budget. You rely on everyone's support. Producer,
director,
you rely on
the director.
I'm director. You need to rely on people being on time, also feeling motivated, because if everyone is down, the movie will suck. It will not be good. So finding these ways how to motivate people, get them to work together, and I already had that experience in a way leading a group of people. But within a Japanese corporation. I think in a way it was a little bit easier because they all knew that there's a set goal from the company. And,
I was going to say, in that I've been involved in film shoots as well. When I was in Australia, we used to get a lot of Japanese film crews coming down. I used to be a coordinator, so I spent a lot of time on film shoots. And of course, the people who are working in those shoots are usually independents. The lighting person's an independent, the producer's an independent. Actors are independents, the editors are independent. So they're a collective team for a particular project. They're a project team, in other words, right?
Exactly.
But an AI company is not a project. It's this is our work. So leading a herding cats, let me put it that way maybe, with a bunch of independents is one thing. But being inside a company with people who are getting paid on salary, they've got a career, they've got prospects there, this is part of their serious work. Different kind of
dynamic.
So What would you find challenging about leading a commercial team in a Japanese company?
I guess one of the challenging thing was to bring everyone on board in doing some challenging things. For example, my way of thinking is always how we can do things better and how we can do them faster.
Now, why is that?
I think, again, my background as a film director and producer, there's a lot of creativity in that, and maybe the fact being Macedonian and being European, I have a different mindset. That once I see that we can do something better and faster, I want to implement that as soon as possible.
Now, I'll ask you that question, not to be facetious, but Japanese are not keen on doing new things because there's risk attached to that. Failure possibly could come out of something new. So stay away from that is a good career move. And fast. Oh, no, fast. This is where errors pop up. Things go wrong. And my name might be attached to this. So thank you very much, Andrijana, for your classic ideas on European speed and, etc. But actually, we're Japanese. We're not that interested in doing it fast or new. So I'm interested in how you got around that issue with them.
Yes. Well, not only at this company, and if I may continue my journey, I was after that professor at Kyoto University, visiting professor at Kyoto University, and I was also visiting professor at a couple other universities. That's how my name got out.
This is full-time as a...
I was a full-time in a university in Macedonia, but visiting professor full-time in Kyoto University for a limited period of time. But that through my academic work, my government in Macedonia found out that there is this Macedonian lady who knows a lot about Japan and is, connected with many people. And
just give people an idea. I've got no idea personally, but how big is the population of Macedonia?
Well, Macedonia, the population goes up and down because many people, young people, we have this trend. Young people are living in Macedonia, but we are, I think, at the moment about 2.5 million people.
2.5 million people, right? So it's a relatively small
and I would
country.
say maybe 4 or 5 people more live abroad.
You've gone abroad. So the population outside of Macedonia is bigger than the population in Macedonia. And you're one of them.
I'm one of them. We have many Macedonians in Australia, in Canada, in the US, in Europe. They have their communities, and we have many Macedonians. And to go back to your question, how do you make people commit to something new? I learned the hard way that in Japan, you cannot just go there and bring your ideas and expect things to happen. You need to do that, something called nemawashi.
Do the groundwork, right?
Do the groundwork and also try to do step by step. Don't try to introduce the grand idea all at once. Break down your idea into some practical steps and, float a little by little the idea with the people that you trust, and they trust you, and see how it goes, and then try to bring it on a bigger meeting.
So how long
building up consensus? You have to have a patience to do that.
How long did it take you to work that out? Because as Westerners, we tend to be very dynamic in our industries and our businesses, and you're rewarded for dynamism, you're rewarded for speed, you're rewarded for results, you push that direction. So we're all sort of on fire. And then you hit the Japanese who are not on fire. And then at some point, you realize, oh, this isn't working. How long did it take you to realize this isn't working?
Well, actually, not too long. Maybe the first few years, actually, when I was doing my Ph.D.
Oh, really? Okay.
In Japan. First, when I came as a researcher. And then I started doing my Ph.D. at Nihon University. And it was not easy, actually, to convince my professors in my thesis. My thesis for the PhD was the archetypes in Japanese cinema. Archetypes is, psychology, although it's a Western way of thinking. It's not a Japanese way of thinking. So to implement Western thoughts and ideas and philosophy into something that is Japanese is not so easy. And I realized that just because you think that your thesis is perfectly written and very well
Clear.
clear and very
Logical.
well thought through and logical. That doesn't mean that you will have the buy-in, and then you have to really work your ground. First of all, you have to build trust. I learned that in Japan, and the way you build trust in Japan, being consistent. That's number one. Number two, being kind at all times, being humble goes a long way. And Japanese people also appreciate that something that many people tell me that I'm a ganko. I'm very
Being
stubborn.
yeah? I can't see any of that at all. What are they talking about?
But you have to be ganko to the extent of following through with your vision and an idea, but you have to also adjust your idea and vision to the circumstances and be open to new ideas. I think that's the key if you want to succeed, because there are many people who are much smarter than you, and there are many people who have more experience than you, and if you're deaf to that, then you're losing so much of what's there to help you how to get faster to what you want. Doesn't mean you have to change your course, doesn't mean you have to change your objectives, but there are many different ways how you can get to the same thing.
So,
and I think with time, with age, you learn to listen better.
Listen better, yeah. You went through different phases, like so you're in sort of herding cats in the sort of freelance world trying to make movies. Then you're in the sort of Ph.D. program, the university, which is a different, very hierarchical, particularly seniority-based in Japanese universities, very inflexible, I would suggest. And then you're in an AI company and you're trying to get this team to adopt something new and do it fast. Great idea. And then after that, you're the ambassador, right?
After that, I was a professor.
Yes,
my academic career.
Yes, exactly. And then you become an ambassador here where you are starting something from scratch, I guess.
Exactly.
So you're hiring all the team in the embassy. And I guess I'm presuming, the American embassy is like, I don't know, 1,000 people or something. It's massive.
Yes.
I don't know the exact number of things. I know it's like more than 700. I don't know how big it is today. I used to work in the Australian embassy. That's pretty big too. How big was the Macedonian embassy when you were running it?
Well, I had the privilege to be the first ambassador, of course. And, when I was selected to be the first ambassador, I think I was not sure if I will be a good ambassador. But I was sure that there's nobody that can match me in my motivation, enthusiasm, and hard work. And I was sure that I am the right person. I'm not sure that I will perform this good because you never done it. You don't know, right? No. It's like you're thrown in something completely new. But I was sure that I was the right person for the job because somehow all the experiences that I had before sort of led me to acquire different kinds of skills. And that's how I also see my professional journey as you're going through life and picking up skills.
But as the ambassador to Macedonia, it's a brand new operation.
Yes.
You've got to have, I presume that the foreign ministry in Macedonia is sending people in. I imagine that you've got to hire people on the ground.
Yes.
And working in an embassy, regardless of the size of the country, is quite prestigious in Japan. So I'm guessing that, convincing people to come and work for Macedonia and be in the embassy is not as difficult maybe for our own companies today. You've got your own company now. It's a little bit of a trickier equation to get people to join, particularly if you have a new company, you start a new company. That's not so easy, right? So was there a big difference for you in managing the team in the embassy to managing a team in the corporate world?
Yes, it was actually much more difficult, I would say, in the embassy. First of all, I was calling all the shots, right? So I had the absolute authority, and that gives you absolute responsibility for your team and, of course, for the mission that you're performing. And in this case, representing a country, it's really a big opportunity, but it's also a big burden on one person because I was ambassador 24 hours a day.
That's right.
I cannot, even I go travel somewhere, I tried sometimes to hide my identity, but people will check. and I will check into the hotel. Welcome, Madam Ambassador. I was like, I really didn't
No
want, I didn't want to.
incognito.
I didn't want to be
Don't have any
ambassador
makeup
for
today
exactly.
and bad hair
I
days.
just
Be all right
wanted
to
to
put a
be
scarf on.
Andrijana. I just wanted to, be in my, I don't know, usual clothes, but that's not possible. But running a team, because it was multinational, right? There were people, as you said, from the ministry, and there were local people that I have to hire here. And in my work, I can say this 100%, no matter where, the most challenging thing is dealing with people. And the most rewarding thing is dealing with people. And the most important thing is your team. If you have a good team, you can be a winner. Even with a small team, you can really do almost everything. People are the most important investment you can make. When you're operating an embassy, sometimes you can hire people who have embassy experience, but other times you have to pick up appropriate people that would fit the team that do not have an embassy experience. So you have to train them. And there's a lot of small details that go into, this, especially in Japan, there's particular protocol about doing everything related to government and embassies.
Well, the compliance and embassy is massive, right?
Yes.
There are regulatory things and
Yes.
also, but the good thing though about being ambassador is in Japan, your status in Japan is slightly above God as an ambassador. That's a good thing. This country respects ambassadors.
Sure.
They respect embassies, and so you get access and people treat you very, as you say, very nicely. Oh, ambassador, it's
That's
pretty
true.
good.
That's true.
So how many years were you ambassador?
I was ambassador for 4 years.
4 years, right?
Full
And
term.
then, is that when you joined the Economist Conference Network? Was that came next, was it?
The Economist Intelligence Unit,
Intelligence
the
Unit,
Economist Group. No, actually, after my mandate of ambassador, which is usually 4 years, I served the full term. I came back to Japan, and I was appointed an advisor to Cartier in Japan
Cartier.
to support female
jewelry company.
empowering, female empowering initiative. But it was a more of a part-time engagement. And the Temple University in Japan, they asked me to teach a course there. They said, you can pick anything. And I already picked some courses. I want to teach something related to international relations and media. And we already pre-signed a contract. And all of a sudden I decided that I'm going to enter the MBA.
Oh, okay.
And I said, Temple, I like your program. Actually, I went to one of the classes. It's only executive MBA for people who are already managers in managerial position in Japanese companies. And it's on weekends.
Okay.
And I go there, so it's Saturday, and the whole day. The first
Lectures.
course was on leadership, and they had a professor coming from Philadelphia. And in my group, you have managers from the top Japanese companies, all young people, many interesting ideas. And I'm coming, as you said, coming from the realms of the gods to the normal people. And that for me was a very important step that I did. Because, being an ambassador, as you said, it's a very high level. You go meet with the emperor, you go meet with the prime minister, foreign minister. You almost lose touch with the reality. It's not to that extent, but you're understanding what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I worked in the Australian Embassy. I know exactly what it's like.
You need to be grounded a little bit if you want to be efficient and effective in the society.
Yeah.
So I decided to cancel the teaching contract and sign for the EMBA at Temple University.
Okay.
My husband thought I was crazy. He said, you already have a master, you have a PhD. I already received an
What do you need a second master's degree for, right?
I already had an honorary PhD. The European University just gave me honorary doctoral a few months ago. I was like, no, I want to really go into this because the executive
Is this
MBA,
a 1 year program?
2 years program.
2 year program. So it's still an executive MBA. What's the difference between an executive MBA and a normal MBA? 2 years is 2 years.
2 years,
There's still a lot of subjects,
but just that the classes are packed and like you go in weekends from morning to night. It's very intense.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And then you don't have other
I'll
classes.
just leave it at my PhD. 1 master's degree. I'm not going to go and get 2 master's degrees. I think I'll just cap it there. So,
And after that, I started my own company.
Right. This is where you did BrioNexus.
BrioNexus, I started
that time.
BrioNexus almost 4 years ago.
Okay. Right.
And it was actually the beginning of the pandemic, so 3.5 years ago. Beginning of the pandemic.
So explain to people what BrioNexus does. What's the business?
BrioNexus, you might say it's a consulting company, but we're much more than a consulting company. We are supporting companies both in Japan and abroad that are in the high technology
Sort of market
sphere.
entry, is that the idea?
It's not market
Not
entry.
market entry.
Usually these companies are already here.
Oh, okay. So it's market expansion then.
Market expansion, or as I said, everything related to new technologies, like quantum computing or AI, or semiconductor industry, high precision semiconductor, or other technologies that these companies are either leaders or exploring into implementing, and they need our support and advice in terms of understanding who would be their natural partners here, how to engage important stakeholders in Japan.
So you've got you've been ambassador, you've been a professor. It's all very prestigious careers in Japan and anywhere for that matter. And so I'm guessing when you start a new company, you've got to recruit people. You've got to get people to work for you, right? And I know when we started, this is a franchise business, okay? So we bought the franchise. It was very hard to recruit people. They're like, no, very small company. I think I'd rather go and work for a big Japanese company because it's more stable, more safe. And so it's not easy to recruit people. So how did you find it when you started a new company to get people to come on board with you?
Yes, you're absolutely right. The unemployment rate in Japan is very low.
It is now, yeah.
And the motivation for people to work for companies, it's not so big because they can be working part-time and then quit working and do something else. There's good unemployment insurance. I think in my case, it was people that I've known from before.
Oh, okay.
People that were able to sort of follow me after that. People who already trusted me. I also have engaged people that I didn't know, but building that trust is much more difficult. As you said, if you're not a big company, or if you don't have, a life contract, lifetime contract, usually new employees are not so willing to
take the risk, right?
It's take a risk, but also for us as a company, we try to also outsource many of the things that we need, because committing to hiring a person in Japan, as you know, from legal point of view, can be many times disadvantage. And I also believe in finding the best people for the project. And then, of course, you have your core team that helps you lead forward. And then when you feel you've reached to some level, now you can grow. And then you hire another tier of the best people. As I said, we believe in filmmaking that the casting is 90% of the job. Same as I think in organization.
So then well, interestingly enough, you got your own company, but you decide to go and work again for the Economist group. So
yes,
and that's a relatively high profile. I'm going to use the word high pressure because you've got to source speakers. You have a room full of business people who have high expectations. They're paying, well, I know because I'm a member, paying a lot of money. Hello to all my friends of the Economist group there. And so the expectations are high. And so they expect speakers, they expect content at a very high level. So I would say high pressure. And plus you're the public face. You're the one leading the panel discussions or giving the talks or giving the briefs to visiting VIPs from overseas on behalf of the member companies, etc. So, it's quite a high profile and high pressure job, I will say. But the team itself is relatively small. So you've got not unlimited resources here to do quite a pressure job. So how did you find that where you've actually got that type of tension between high expectations but not a big resource to back it up? I don't think it's a big resource. When I look at it, I think, wow, these people are under a lot of pressure here.
As you mentioned, I was the director for North Asia for the Economist Intelligence Unit of the Economist Group, and I have been a big fan of the Economist for a long time, and I continue to be. I mean, I love the magazine, and I love the history that comes with it, and I think that's that kind of a brand that comes with this kind of integrity and the quality of content. It's been the thing that attracted me. And the other thing that was one of the motivation why I accepted the job is, well, they allow me to keep my company running.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yes.
You do it both. Okay,
Yes.
fine.
Of course, I committed to be focusing most of my time to the work at Economist. However, I could continue running my company as a president and CEO, and delegate many of my duties to other people. But you're right, representing a company or a big brand is a big responsibility, especially in Tokyo, in which, as you know, the members of the Economist corporate network are all multinational companies, top CEOs,
That's right.
one of the best business leaders in Japan. They're super smart, very well informed. Probably they've read the Economist most current edition multiple times, and they know more than me. So to be able to engage this kind of group and crowd and always find something new to deliver to them, to bring value on the table, I think it's very difficult.
But as you say, the casting is the important, right? So you are
Exactly.
maybe you're a one-woman army,
Yeah.
but you still need help. So you've
Exactly.
got a small team, don't have unlimited resources. So how did you approach that in terms of leading the people in the team to come up to the standard that the Economist group expects, and particularly the clientele also expects? What was working for you
Have you
there?
been to some of my events? Or maybe you
No,
were not?
sadly, no. I didn't get to your events. COVID, when COVID hit, the training industry took a big hit. So I froze my membership to concentrate on survival, frankly. And so, but I've rejoined. How long ago did I rejoin? Maybe a year ago I rejoined. Yes, must be a year ago because I'm getting the bill for the next year, so it must be a year. So yes, no, I missed you. I missed you. I didn't get to meet you, unfortunately, at that time, but so I can't comment about anything about that. But I've been a member before, and I'm a member now, so I'm very familiar. I've been a member for a long time, so I know how it works.
Well, but to answer your question about how are you able to sort of deliver the quality of service with very limited resources, well, that's nothing new to me. Because I have that kind of entrepreneurial spirit, and I rely on my personal relationships with people, and I spend a lot of time building relationships. Maybe I would say I spend 80% of my time in building relationships. Through meetings, helping other people, being informed about other people's job, progress, thinking. So building the network and building the support group, it's very important. It's quite exhausting because you have to be out there, you have to be meeting people, but it's very important because once you get in a position to do job as I had in the Economist, I knew maybe 60 to 70% already of the people who are members. I already knew them. So I already had in the crowd or from my members in the audience, people who were cheering for me. That's also very important. Then
there's a contradiction there, though, isn't there? Because as you say, you've got 80% of your time where you're trying to build those relationships, build the trust, but then you've got your team. So the time you have, the 20% to go to the team and to build a trust with them, and it's quite a difficult contradiction to actually have that bigger picture, but also the micro picture of actually dealing with people, the resource you have, getting them motivated.
What I say about the 80%, it's in principle. That's what I do. But that's what I've been doing when I was ambassador, and even before that. I really put great emphasis on relationships. I mean, of course, I'm not sure it's 80%. This month, maybe it's 20% this month. Next month is 70%.
You talk about general terms.
In general terms. But working with a team, I think in order to be effective with a team, you need to be given the authority to lead the team. That's very important. And to be given incentives that you can incentivize the team. If you do not have that weapon in your hand, it's really hard to lead any team.
And when you say incentives, are we talking about money or anything apart from money?
I think money is the last incentive you should mention and use. Because of course it's important, of course it's on everyone's mind, and of course everyone is expecting it. So it's not in my mind, it's not incentive. It's something that they deserve, and if you don't give it to them, they probably leave.
Or
they go somewhere else
and get it, right? Especially now.
Exactly. Incentive, I mean by incentive is finding ways or having a weapon in your hand in which you can publicly promote that person, give them opportunities to represent the company on important events, give them opportunities to grow, to learn, to expose themselves to new experiences, all kinds of varieties of incentives that will make someone working in the team or in the company say, oh wow, well I joined this company and really I'm learning a lot, I'm getting a lot. Because that's what, at the end of the day, after you pay your bills, that's what you care about, what kind of experience you're having in your job. And I think companies not understanding that are making a big mistake. If you don't understand that, if you want to have successful team and successful company, you really need to give tools to the leader to lead. If you just say, oh, this is our KPI and this is our return on investment and we want you to achieve this and that, you're giving just the stick. But you have to be able to give the carrot.
No sweeties.
Exactly. Without the carrot, nobody's
going to worry about it. Right?
And it's going to be, as often turns out in many companies, it becomes just a toxic work environment in which people are feeling a lot of pressure to deliver and they don't feel that they're appreciated. So the purpose of the company, you've heard this term, purposeful leadership or leading with a purpose. That purpose need to be, every person in the company needs to be part of that purpose, or they need to find their purpose in themselves, what they want.
Align the company
and
with their own
and the
purposes,
leaders also need to know what's their team's purpose. So understanding your team is super, super important.
In that sense, you've got your own company, you've worked in the academic area, you've worked in the diplomatic area, you've worked in the tech area, you've worked in Economist group area, you've got many, many things. Thinking back, and you've sort of touched on a few points already, but just think any additional points you can think of that you've found in your experience that works well to engage people in the team to really want to do the work.
I think there are many things that I could mention. I think one thing that makes people want to work with someone is if they feel that they're part of a unified group, in a way building that harmony across the team and building unity. Even in the Bible, Jesus says, the house that is divided amongst itself, it cannot stand. So if you don't have that unity, the team cannot work together. And that, I think, is the way how you build that unity, how you build that team.
So how do you do it?
I always say person to person. I think you need to take the time not to, everybody, the team, you need to know Michael, you need to know John, you need to know Keiko, you need to know Tanaka-san, you need to know everybody personally. You take the time to engage with them personally, understand what are their pains and gains, and what is their motivation, what's their journey until now. And I think that's the thing of a leader. You are same like, I'm gonna use this example, is a mother who has 6 children. All your children are different, but you need to love them all despite all of their
So did you say you have 6 children?
I don't have, but I said if I
had, I was going to say, wow,
Yeah.
6 kids, let's go. That's a
Not so
full-time
lucky.
job right there. Yeah.
No, but the analogy is
I get the point. Yeah,
you need to embrace.
Yeah.
This is your team.
If you want to be successful as a leader, do the Leadership Training for Managers course. All companies need people who can both manage and lead. Leading people screams out for real skills in communication, dealing with all different types of people, being excellent at innovation, planning, delegation, handling mistakes, doing performance reviews really well, and inspiring and motivating the team. Do the Leadership Training for Managers course now in either Japanese or English. Are you doing business with Japan? Do you really know how things work? Japan Business Mastery provides the answers. Do you have the right networks and know how to create them? Do you know how to get on the same wavelength with Japanese buyers? Do you know what being trustworthy looks like from the Japanese perspective? Japan Business Mastery is based on more than 30 years' experience in Japan and will become your go-to guide. Want to succeed in Japan? Buy Japan Business Mastery now. So you're talking about individual attention for team members, very personalised attention, as a means to build that engagement.
Yeah.
And that's been working, right? And again, you mentioned also before about, there are lots of demands on the leader.
Yes.
So there's always a battle, isn't it, for time, being able to take your mind to one person when you've got, belting crocodiles here with a big oar of fires, putting out the fires. So there's always that tension, isn't there? For leaders often get sucked up into other parts of the job, and the engaging people part to get them engaged gets sacrificed, I guess, on the altar of busyness as a busy boss. So, and you mentioned also before about trust. You talked before about trust, and that's obviously an integral part. One other thing, though, if you've got people who are engaged, they want to build a better mousetrap. They care. Yeah, we want things to be better around here. When they come up with ideas. But when you're a very dynamic personality, like you are, we want it fast and we want it new and we want it better. Often I suffer from this issue myself. We tend to have a lot of ideas and we have a lot of dynamism and we have a lot of things. Yeah, we can do this, we can do this. But sometimes I forget that the team have got ideas and not just me, and I've got to actually get their ideas out of them. So what have you found works well to get people to come up with ideas and innovations?
That's a tough one. As I said, incentive. and again, incentive, especially in the Japanese context. If you can be punished for your ideas, or if you can be blamed for ideas, and then if there's no incentive to fail, because there should be incentive. If you fail, you have an idea, you come to me, the idea didn't work, but then I'll say, listen, everyone, last month the thing we did with that client that I don't know, Michael suggested. It was a really good idea. I mean, we learned something. Maybe it wasn't exactly what we were hitting at, but it was really, we have a great takeaways, and let's try to do next month with this XX client, how we can do better. And then create that atmosphere that people say, oh, wow, he failed, but he's not being punished, or she. And
which is important.
Then creating that atmosphere of emotional safety.
Well, Japan is a no error, no defect culture. And so that's one of the limiting things, isn't it? Having the fear of the new, the fear of failure. Therefore, I will limit myself. And I've got a great idea, but I'm not going to put it out. Or I've got a great initiative, but I'm not going to discuss it with anybody. So being able to get people to do that is very, very critical skills.
And then also praise the people, uplift the people who do that. Give these people who are able to take the risk more credit.
Well, on that point, though, some Japanese are quite happy to be picked out by the boss for recognition, but not everybody. Others, this thing about the group, stay within the group and don't get outside the group or above the group. that some people are very uncomfortable to be praised and recognized, singled out in public, maybe privately, different question, but publicly. So that's also a bit of a tricky thing, isn't it? It's like in the West, hey, Andrijana got the #1 result, or she did the biggest deal. Hey, okay, great. Yeah. But Japan's a little bit different.
I think it's also depends on how the leaders do it. Same like I'm going to give the analogy with children. If you line up your kids and say, listen, he did the best homework and all of you didn't. You know what I mean? If you're doing in that spirit, they just feel less.
No dinner for you 5.
Exactly. So you cannot do it in a way in which other people feel less. You have to do it in a way in which you are very on a subtle way, sophisticated way, uplifting the people who
positive
reinforcement and giving them maybe more responsibilities gradually, so people are not thinking that you're making favors to that person, but everyone on the subconscious level, they're getting the message, it's okay to fail, it's okay to go to my boss and suggest something that might not work, because my boss is actually happy with new ideas. So once they see that kind of dynamic,
they feel, as you said, that emotional trust.
Exactly.
And they can share, etc.
Yeah. And of course, you have to always be inclusive, to include everyone.
Yeah.
So not be very careful about if you're going to be just praising others and making other people feeling left out of that conversation. I think that's very dangerous. But in the same time, try to create a dynamic and culture of innovation, because it comes from the top. If my boss doesn't ask me, Andrijana, how should we improve our services, I'm thinking of a new service for the next year, and I'm thinking I'm going to give you X and X budget and X team of people, do you think you can achieve it? You need someone from the top to give you that kind of direction. If the leader on the top is just expecting people to come with ideas while they're busy and putting down fires, it's not going to happen.
Not going to happen.
Yeah.
And what about culture? Like we have, when you're in university, it's got a certain culture to it. The organization, the university itself has a certain culture dynamic there. When you're in an AI company, there's a company culture. When you're in the ministry, foreign ministry of Macedonia, it's a certain culture. Economist group, certain culture. You have your own company. You're creating a culture. So what have you found has worked well for you to create a culture? Now, it might be in a bigger organization, it might be an overarching umbrella culture of the head office or whatever, but you're in Japan and you're going to have your own operation here. So you can build a culture for your team. What have you found works well to build a culture in your own teams?
I think consistency is very important. Lead by example. That if you're not showing up at work, don't expect anyone will. If you are not, I think what the culture is, people pick up on the small things you do, not on the big things. How are you greeting the janitor? How are you treating the janitor or anyone else, the service people, or when there is a crisis, how do you react to the crisis? Are you calm? Are you blaming others? And that
panicking?
Are you panicking? So that actually, unless you have a culture specialist in your company that's going to design the culture for you and make sure everyone is on track, if you're a smaller organization, actually you are the one that creates the culture, and that comes from your character.
Well, as a leader, I don't think I'd leave the culture creation to a culture specialist. I'm the leader. I want my culture in this company or this organization. So they might be an executor of ideas, but I would want to control that, I think. And in terms of in your own company, particularly because you've got a free reign, right? This is your own thing here. You'd have to correspond with the bigger picture of some macro organization, but that gives you a lot of freedom, I think, to drive a culture and also to set the boundaries of what the culture tolerates. what's allowed, what's not allowed, what's alignment, what's non-alignment, what's our expanded expectations around performance and all those sorts of things. Yeah, very important. If you're going to give some advice to someone who's being sent to Japan, they ring you up, hey, Andrijana, I've got this big job there. They want to go to Japan. I don't know anything about Japan. I've never been in Japan. I don't speak Japanese. What should I do? What would be some advice you'd give them on how to be an effective leader in Japan?
I would say, first of all, you have to stop thinking the way you have been thinking before and start just listening.
Okay.
Just spend enough of your time here when you come. Just listen. Listen to the way people talk, the tone or even of the voice, what they say and what they don't say. Listen to the news and understand what's happening, and take many, many sources to listen and understand, and also to see. Travel also around Japan, I would say. Watch many old Japanese films, as I did.
PhD in cinema here, giving some
Absolutely.
sound advice, yeah.
You can learn so much from Japanese cinema. You can learn so much about the country that you see. For example, you see me now, I'm a result of years of building, right? If you could have the opportunity to look at my movie, you understand everything about me, right?
Okay.
So the same is for a country. If you're able to, I know you don't have much time to probably read all the books that you need to read about Japan, but if you can see many movies, older Japanese movies or newer movies, and you'll understand lots of cultural aspects, social aspects, political aspects, lots of things that, for example, you cannot grasp at the moment because, you know, what they say, Japan is a different planet. I think that's absolutely true. And
also, when we're studying Japanese, we tend to watch programs. You know, I know when I was studying Japanese, I would watch variety programs because the Japanese wasn't too specific and in a specialized way. Whereas the NHK News is extremely difficult because you have such specialized subjects, one after another, 7 to 10 in one news broadcast. Very hard to follow that. Whereas maybe a drama, a regular drama, and the characters and you know the interactions between people, the language they use. So just in terms of learning the language, I agree with you. I learned a lot about the culture and the keigo, the polite language, the mannerisms, and you know difference and all these sorts of things. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that before, but when I think back, I did use that as a methodology to learn the language. Yeah, very effective.
And you also learn some things that are subconscious. When do you bow? How much you bow? How people are saying or agreeing with each other when they talk, or not agreeing. But in Japan, it's usually agreeing when you're listening. All these kind of things that are sort of mannerism, or even business manners and etiquette, customs in Japan. Everything you can learn. And I think once you have that sort of a little bit of a background. Other thing that I would recommend for business leaders coming here in Japan, not to stay with the expat community only. I mean, they're a great source of knowledge. People who've been here, then they can be great support and give great advice. But you should go out from the comfort zone as soon as possible. If you can.
Well, this implies you should learn Japanese then. Is that another piece of advice?
You have to.
Should they learn Japanese?
Absolutely. I think the probably number one reason is why I'm where I am today. It's because I learned Japanese. I was thrown into the water. I came in Japan, didn't speak any Japanese. I was thrown into the water, and I said, if you want to do research on cinema, we have to learn Japanese. Guess what? Nobody speaks English at Nihon University. So I entered a PhD and I, studied by myself Japanese, and I did my whole PhD in Japanese. And because I know Japanese, I could watch movies that don't have subtitles. I can travel around Japan. No need of a translator or somebody to be helping me, guiding me. So you get more immersed.
And you can meet with the emperor or the prime minister.
And I can meet with the
directly.
exactly.
But you've got to learn very special language to talk to the emperor, though.
And actually, I did it in Japanese.
Yeah,
When I was ambassador, they asked me.
Yeah, me too. I met the emperor, previous emperor, and there's like specific keigo for the imperial family.
Did you speak keigo?
Yeah, of course. I had to, absolutely. You know, I had to
I
learn
did
it.
the ceremony in Japanese. Which was very nerve-wracking, but
yeah, exactly. That's right. The ambassadors, presenting credential ceremony. I've attended that one. I wasn't the ambassador, but I attended with the ambassador, so that was interesting.
Yeah.
But coming back to any other advice for the person who's being sent to Japan to help them be effective here as a leader?
Exactly. I think if you're coming and you're going to be leading a multinational company, presumably you're coming from a very different culture, your corporate culture back home. And you probably will have here a team of many Japanese people, but also foreigners. I would really advise you that you take the time to get to know them better, to get to know their background, and to find and go slowly with your communication methods. If you want to understand better your team, as I said, you need to have that time of when you listen and absorb, and then go and improve, because you need to understand also what their obstacles, what their issues that they're facing with. It's not always what it seems from the outside. And I would say, and the most important thing that you can do is build your trust with your employees and your team members.
I'm going to ask you a very specific question now, because we've had, I think we've released at this point in this stage 157 of these interviews, and the vast majority are men. And as I said to you when I met you and I asked you to come on the podcast, I said one of my great desires is to have more female voices talking about leading in Japan, and also to help other women who could see here's a role model I could follow, and I could become, like a successful leader as well as a woman. So thinking about, leading in Japan as a woman, what advice would you give to other women to be successful as a leader in Japan?
I think it's the same advice I would give to men. Maybe from a Japanese perspective, I think being efficient as a woman in Japan requires us a lot of sacrifice, because the system is built to support male leadership, and female should basically be in the back and be the backbone of the family. I'm talking more about infrastructure, social infrastructure, but also the corporate culture is built like that to empower more men. And there's also a lot of burden on men. It's not only empowerment, because women, they retire after they get married, have children, and they focus on the family. And in many ways, of course, it's a very responsible and difficult job, and underappreciated job. But it's in some ways more relaxed, while the man has all the burden to make money. And many women that I know that are very successful in Japan, sadly, they don't have family, they don't have children. So that's realistic advice. What I would say to women is try to build a support system for you that can support your career even after you get married and have children, supposedly, if you want to do that, right? But I'm sort of addressing generally women generally, because that has been the biggest obstacle. Women cannot. That's where it gets hard. You cannot have it all. So if you're able to build a support system, or maybe set up goals, like I'll have now my children, and maybe for 10 years, while I'm taking care of my children, I'm not going to be working, but I'll be working on myself.
Right.
And I'll be, taking different kind of courses, maybe an MBA, or maybe I can start a home business, something small that keeps me busy and gives me motivation. Maybe take a course with you, or travel.
They should definitely come and do a course exactly. with me. Dale Penny course would be a good one.
Travel abroad to meet other people and make connections. In a way, keep yourself occupied and busy and do not give up on that ambition and dream that you have. But if you also decide to continue your career while you're having children, which is also now possible, I think many companies are making it more viable by providing childcare facilities within the companies and others, and also other benefits the government also is putting in place. Succeeding in a company, I think, even though it might seem counterintuitive, that usually they say in Japan, the head that doesn't stick out will not get
bashed down. Right?
I would say stick out your head.
Okay. Right.
It might be a period in which you'll be regretting, you'll be crying because you did that, because immediate results, it's a shock, right? Why she did that? But that's the only way how you can express yourself. Find ways how to express yourself, of course, without stepping on other people's heads too much, but be yourself, express yourself, don't be afraid, and go forward. And it will be hard. It will be very hard. You have to be competing in uneven ground, but keep working on yourself. And then don't forget these things. I believe in this feminine principle of leadership, which is kindness, acceptance, inclusiveness.
Kindness, acceptance, and inclusiveness.
Yes.
Okay.
And those women are very brave. They're very courageous.
Women are tough.
We are very tough as well.
I know.
We might just seem very fragile, but we are super tough. And I think using this sort of natural qualities that we have as a strength, not as a weakness. Once you build that inner center to be on the ground, firmly standing on the ground, and you work on yourself, you have your confidence and you have your dream, then use the natural tools that nature gave you, like being compassionate, having empathy, and being able to reach out to many people and lead with that forward.
What would be your definition of leadership?
Oh, that's a tough one.
Well, there's no correct answer. That's the good part, right?
Yeah. But I think I mentioned even before, I think a leader is someone who is ready to sacrifice himself for the good of others. Of course, many people can be corporate leaders because they're looking for profit. I'm talking about leader in the concept of person that people would willingly follow up, even without their title or someone who you see this. So this
real
person is
leader.
leader. If you're in an airport right now and there is a crisis, I will follow that guy or this woman. It seems that, so building up your character to be that person that people want to follow, being trustworthy, that I think is very important. And when you meet people who are trustworthy and honest, it comes out from their eyes, from their personality. You sort of feel confident, feel at ease with them. So cultivating that. And then what I mentioned before, I think the real leader, the fruit of a real leadership is always creating unity with people.
Is always what, sorry?
Creating unity with people.
Creating unity with
yes.
people. Okay, right.
Trying to, sometimes you have maybe in your team or people who are not ready to follow, or they don't want to be part of unity. And I think that's also another thing about leaders. You have to make the tough call to let that person go.
Yeah.
You cannot, you shouldn't equal people pleaser to creating unity. You have to find your team of people who are ready to take the big challenge and move forward and align them around you, create unity, and conquer the world.
Conquer the world. That sounds a good place to finish the podcast. We'll just conquer the world.
Yeah.
Well, Andrijana,
whichever world that is, right?
Whichever world that is. Everyone's got separate worlds, right?
Exactly.
So thank you. Well, thank you very much. It's been fascinating.
Thank you.
And please join us again for our next episode of Japan's top business interviews.